and Bharat and Bharati became Bharitan and the British. The British culture is in effect the Phoenician culture. Not only that, when you look at the names given to the goddesses and what have you, or in the Indus Valley, what we call the Hindu culture, they are the same. They are very, very close to the name Bharat and Bharati, because this white race, as I said earlier, also went in and created the Indus Valley Hindu culture. No accident that all the major religions in the world that were prisoners came out of this same area of the Middle and Near East. In Britain are white horses scored into the hillside. This is supposed to be the oldest one. It's a place called Uffington in Wiltshire. And it's been dated to around 3000 BC. That is precisely the time the Phoenicians arrived by sea into Britain, bringing the Bharati, British culture as it became. Now, why would the Phoenicians score horses in the hillsides, the chalk hillsides of Britain? Very simple. The Phoenicians were sun worshippers. This was a Phoenician symbol of the sun. This is a Phoenician high priestess. Again, you see the swastika. The swastika was a Phoenician symbol of the sun. Quite a positive symbol, and what the Nazis did, because they understood this, is they turned it round to indicate the negative, because they understood the nature of the sun as well. This is a Phoenician stone found in Britain. There again, you see the swastika. And what we call the British culture came from the Near East. Another thing that these advanced people within the Phoenician culture understood was the fact that the earth has through it and around it what is known as an energy grid or grids. These are force lines of energy. Some people call them ley lines, some people call them dragon lines in China, meridians, whatever. Where these lines of force cross, you create a vortex. Where many of these lines cross, you create a colossal vortex. And therefore you have enormous energy which you can use to create and do various things. This guy was an Englishman in a place called Herefordshire, and one day he was on his horse at the top of a hillside, and he suddenly looked down into the valley and saw these lines in a sort of psychic way all over the place, straight lines, and they connected the sacred wells, the sacred places of worship, the points where the churches were built, the hillsides, etc. And this now, as we have moved on, has been confirmed by the scientific world, those with an open mind anyway, that this grid system actually exists like a web around the world. Now, where these ley lines cross in their most powerful way, where most of them cross, just happens to correspond with where the ancients had their most sacred ceremonies and their most sacred places. Stonehenge and places like that were built on them. So where the lines come in and the vortex is created, that is where they built the Stonehenges. The Aveburys, another stone circle and energy complex in Britain. That's where they built all over the world their temples to access this energy. This is Avebury in Wiltshire. Now this is interesting. I used to live near here, and the Phoenicians built this with their knowledge. Now the Phoenicians, I would suggest, and the evidence is presented in The Biggest Secret, were originally a Martian race. What people like Richard Hoagland have found, who's investigated the Cydonia region of Mars, where they've found pyramids, etc., and other non-natural creations, is that if you look at the way that the various pyramids and non-natural points relate to each other in this area of Mars called Cydonia, and then you place them over Avebury in Wiltshire, England, they fit almost exactly. Avebury appears to be a mirror of Cydonia on Mars. Also, when you look at the background, there's very strong evidence that the pyramids in Egypt were built around 3000 BC, the very time these things were going up. And they built pyramids. What have they found on Mars? Pyramids. Also, as some scientific research has shown, when you put people in white bodies into sensory deprivation tanks, their natural rhythm is not the rhythm of the orbit of the Earth, it is the rhythm of the orbit of Mars. And a scientist friend of mine said to me once, after I first met him, he said, there's a point in the world where on one of these magnetic grids systems called the Hartmann grid, 12 of these meridian lines cross at the same point and go down in the Earth. Amazing place. I said, where's that? He said, a place called Avebury in England. The ancients knew this. This is Silbury Hill, the biggest man-made mound in Europe, right next to Avebury. This is Stonehenge. It's one of the crop circles down the bottom there, or the crop formations. 125 circles, I think there is in that. These ancients, coming from this advanced knowledge, this is Tara in Ireland, all over this area of Britain. This is Glastonbury Tor, not too far from Avebury and Stonehenge. And then you come to the pyramids of Central America, the Yucatan. Why is the basic culture and the stories and the beliefs and the building methods of Central America, South America, the same as Europe? Because when you follow this research, you find that the Phoenicians not only went to Britain in the ancient world, they crossed the Atlantic also. Phoenician artifacts have been found in Brazil, for instance. And what could well be Egyptian, certainly Egyptian or Oriental artifacts, have been found in the Grand Canyon. The reason that the stories and the beliefs are so similar, almost exactly the same, in the American continent as the European continent, when they weren't supposed to have met, is because it was taken from across the Atlantic into the Americas by this white race. Babylon, I mentioned earlier, was very important. It was in Babylon that a large number of these reptilian, human, reptilian, Martian, whatever you want to call them, reptilian white bloodlines focus themselves. And in Babylon, they created the structure which can be found in every religion, because they understood if you got a certain structure and called it a religion, you could imprison the human mind. And so when you look at the religious belief and structure and stories of ancient Babylon, you're looking at the ancient stories that followed. For instance, where have you heard this before? Nimrod, the father, and Tammuz, the son, were the same. Father-son. And then you had Queen Semiramis, who was the mother, the virgin mother of Tammuz. So in Babylon, vastly before Christianity, you had Nimrod, Tammuz, Semiramis. Father, mother, son. The Trinity. And Nimrod was symbolized in many different ways. And one of the ways he was symbolized was as the eagle looking both ways. And what you're looking at there is a symbol of modern Freemasonry. The symbols of the modern secret societies that control the world to this minute are the symbols of ancient Babylon and this period where it all, this area of the world where it all came out of. Incidentally, another aspect of Nimrod died with a lamb at his feet, was put into a tomb, and when after 3 days they pulled the stone back, there was no one there. I think I've heard that somewhere before too. This is another sun god who didn't exist, called Mithra. In Persia, Rome, and even Mithra artifacts have been found even in Britain. And what did they say about this guy, Mithra? He was born on December the 25th. He was born to a virgin mother. He died so our sins could be forgiven. They brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh to his birth. And that they called him the vine. They called him the Lord, the shepherd. All the things you see in the New Testament, you see said about Mithra. And where the Roman Catholic Center is now, the Vatican, on that site, they found Mithra artifacts because it was a place of Mithra worship. And Mithra ran right up into the Jesus period, and they basically changed the name of Mithra to Jesus, and we had another religion.